All right, let's move on to our next game here in Jacksonville, Florida. The Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. The bowl where Woody Hayes was fired for punching a Clemson player in the helmet. Again, why would you fire someone for punching a helmet? Come on. All right, this is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish versus the South Carolina Gamecocks. Notre Dame is a 2-point favorite in this game with nobody playing quarterback. I don't know who's going to play quarterback for this game, so there's always that. I've heard that Buckner might be back for this game. They're talking about that. South Carolina, man, coming off of a nice way to end the season, beating Tennessee, beating Clemson. Note, it's kind of like both of these teams had a really nice finish to the year. We had a lot of questions about Notre Dame early on. Mel Tucker. I'm thinking Marcus Freeman there. Struggled early on, but showing that he is the right coach for Notre Dame. You look at everything that South Carolina's got going on. They got boat raced by Georgia, but then finish out the year for them. Interesting game here. I wish more of Notre Dame's players were playing in this game. Michael Mayer obviously not going to play in this game. Isaiah Foskey not going to play in this game. Both first-round draft picks. Obviously, they're going to skip this bowl game. But Fresh, give me something about the Gator Bowl here in Jax.
Well, I think on paper this is the best Gator Bowl matchup we've had in a long time. Two teams that are heading in the right direction, new, younger, fire coaches, programs that are trying to get back to a higher echelon than what they have been. So I think it's a lot of energy in this football game. You're going to see there was already a lot of tickets sold. I got a feeling there's going to be a lot more walk-ups as we go in the next week here before kickoff. And Jacksonville, River City's going to be piled in with a bunch of Gamecocks and Fighting Irish fans. This is going to be a pretty cool environment, which sometimes in bowl games you don't get the fan environment where it's not exactly a packed house unless it's a playoff game. So that's really, really cool to see if that happens. Both these teams beat Clemson in the month of November as you move down. So that's just sort of like they got over that hump. Now, obviously, Notre Dame had done that before in the regular season year, but in 2020, they beat them, and they kind of have that more of a constant matchup with Clemson, but in South Carolina being the state rival. But both of them to get it done the same year shows that there's progress being made. Now, obviously, this is not a Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, national championship Clemson football team, but to get over that hump and get that accomplishment and that check that box on your resume is a big deal for both these programs. But with that said, they both also had inexplicable losses during the season. Notre Dame losing to Marshall, which caught everybody off guard, win a couple of games, and you lose to Stanford. And then on the other side, South Carolina, I think even on paper at the time of the game, they were better than Missouri, but they just rolled out and got smoked by the team from the other Columbia. And then they go down to Gainesville. And if you guys watched the Las Vegas Bowl, that Florida team's terrible. Even if Richardson plays, I don't think that they do very well. And they got boat raced by the Gators. And then the next week they come in there and they boat race Tennessee, and then they beat Clemson. Like, the players are there, I think, because you don't do those two games back to back off the cuff. Like, there has to be some sort of talent and coaching there. There's players that are wanting to play. They're buying into Shane Beamer. And the same thing with the way Notre Dame finished out. They played well down the stretch. They played they actually gave USC a very good football game in the Coliseum the last week of the regular season. These guys are buying into that program the coaches are selling. So you're seeing talent grow. And I think that's going to be a big thing going forward. People had kind of questions. Was Marcus Freeman truly the guy? Is he better than Brian Kelly? What does he bring to this program? He had a couple years since the DC. He's been coaching around, but really, who is Marcus Freeman as a head coach? The players chewed for him when he got the job. It took him a while to figure out how he wanted to coach it and how to get through it. You have a tough matchup versus Ohio State in the opener. He finally got them moving in the right direction. This actually proves another chance now. Do you win the bowl game? Do you cap it off? Because last year, we all thought, honestly, they were going to beat Oklahoma State. They had the energy coming into that bowl game. They had a huge lead, and then they choked it away in the second half. Can he actually get that bowl game win? Look at Shane Beamer on the other side. You're actually now the hunted, if you will, because you did beat two top 10 teams in a row, 10 this season. Your target squarely and you. I think you're actually the favorite. So I haven't looked at the spread, but I would say they're the favorite in this game.
Notre Dame's
So
2-point
now,
favorite.
ooh, wow, interesting. Without a quarterback, that's wow. Okay, I digress. But if how do you actually maintain that being the team that nobody expects you to win? Now they expect you to be competitive and win the football game. Where do you hold that standard at now? This is a standard-setting football game for the South Carolina program. Because if you lose this game, they're like, well, they pulled off two cute upsets. One was a rivalry game, and one was nobody expected them to compete. Where do you go from here? You did all that stuff during SEC media days. You came in front and had the little video and the whole music video and all that stuff. And where does Shane Beamer take this program going forward? That's what I'm kind of looking at. I'm not looking at the players on the field and who's active. We have so many guys transferring in. Spencer Rattler, does he really even want to stay for another year? I think he does, even though their offensive coordinator left. Where do the integrity and the core of these programs go forward? Because you had a great season, nice little finish, or is this the next step in those developments of those two coaches, those two player development groups, as we move forward into 2023 and beyond? Notre Dame, top 10 recruiting class. South Carolina didn't have a top 10 recruiting class, but do they find ways to build their programs, build the integrity of what they have? I want to see something from that and how these coaching staff and how these players respond in this football game. Who wants to compete in Jacksonville on the 30th of December? In the end, looking at past experience, especially last year against North Carolina when they didn't have a quarterback and they ran out receivers and running backs, and South Carolina found a way to get a win, the Gamecocks show up in bowl games. Ask Ohio State, ask Michigan throughout the years. Somehow South Carolina shows up in bowl games, and I think they continue that. South Carolina beats Notre Dame and keeps building off on the Shane Beamer trend going forward, and the Gamecocks get it done.
Yeah, Fresh, it's interesting for this because I was thinking, what does this game mean to both these teams? And Marshawn Lloyd not going to play in this game for them. So it's interesting. Spencer Rattler has done a phenomenal job and really done well late in the season here. I think he definitely comes back for one more year just to maybe boost his draft stock. I know that he was a big name prospect coming out, kind of saved his career and potentially NFL career at South Carolina. Do you strike when maybe your third, fourth round pick right now and come out? Or do you come back in our year, see if you can put some more on tape and elevate yourself to the next level? Because really coming back next year, the conversation is Caleb Williams and then who else? Like Quinn Ewers, Drake May's only going to be a sophomore. I don't know. Like that's JJ McCarthy. He's going to be coming out next year, maybe. So it makes sense to me for Rattler to come back. But I'm gonna float one thing out there to you. Shane Beamer at South Carolina. You see what Georgia's doing. Georgia has a death grip on the SEC East from here on out. Like the SEC East runs through Athens, and if you're gonna even have a chance to get to Atlanta, you're gonna have to go toe to toe with the Bulldogs in Athens there. Then you take a look at what Heupel has done over there in Knoxville with Tennessee. We both think that Tennessee might take a little step back next year, but I still don't see it being like a giant step back. I don't see them slipping all the way down to like a 6-6 or 7-5 thing. I still think that's a 9-3 football team out there, 8-4, 9-3. You look at what Napier just brought in at Florida. What's going on there? What Stoops is doing over at Kentucky with a whole lot less talent. Does the Shane Beamer start to look at what's above him in the SEC East and going, I'm lucky to finish 5th in this conference. But that Beamer last name would buy him a lot of time, and he could be that white knight riding in on the silver horse to Metallica's Enter Sandman at Vitech. I don't know, it's hard to follow your dad, but who better than him?
I like the trend there, and I would be interested to see how in the future. But actually, he said when he started coaching, he didn't want to be a GA or assistant at Virginia Tech because he didn't want to live on his dad's name. Which, no matter what, you're going to live off your dad's name because it's Beamer. But his connection to South Carolina is when he was there under Steve Spurrier. So he actually has deep ties to Columbia. And I think he's fully invested in them. But you know what? In this game where it's transfer portal, there's coaches leaving, you never take anyone's true word for it because money talks. So I think it's something to keep there is that money does talk. But it was you kind of figure where can you win quicker though? And I think that's another point where Virginia Tech is interesting because if you finish fifth in the SEC or you have a chance of winning an ACC title,
because sooner or later South Carolina is just going to get over it, and they're going to fire you. Being fourth or fifth in the SEC East, they're going to fire you.
There's a phrase that has been said: they will fire you for the reason they hired you. And if you're hired to win in certain games, you don't win in certain games. Eventually, your clock hits midnight and you get fired.
Yeah. I'll take Notre Dame in this game. I don't know why. I'll just take Notre Dame just for giggles.
Hey,
Fighting
drink
Irish.
some Jameson.
Hey, yeah. Seriously, let's pour some whiskey. We should really look at seeing if we could do a live broadcast from that game. That'd be fun.